Good morning. This morning, we would like to begin our worship service in song. So if you are able, please rise in mind, body, and spirit as we sing hymn 1003, Where Do We Come From? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery, 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 and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Rochester. It is such a joy to be with all of you on this Sunday morning, both here in person and online. I'm the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. I'm the lead minister of this congregation. I use them and they and she and her pronouns, and I'm one of two ministers that serves this congregation. The other minister, Reverend AJ, it's his birthday, and he's sick. Life is so joyful and so cruel. But I am overjoyed to be leading worship today with Ann Perry, who said, well, I'm no Reverend AJ, but I can jump in. With Sarah and with Joe and with Emily, who celebrates her wedding anniversary this weekend. Yeah. And with so many others behind the scenes, those who greet, those who make coffee, those who lead ways to get engaged, to create belonging here in our community and make a bigger impact in the world after our worship service. It is not Sunday without all of you in my book, and it is not church without all of us together. We're not a building, we are a people with a purpose, and together our mission is through spiritual connection in community. We serve, we skipped to the end right there. We start by listening. We listen to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. We celebrate here in Rochester and across this continent Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow, and each week we open by acknowledging with respect the land on which we now gather. This here is the ancestral and contemporary land of the Seneca peoples, the keepers of the western door of the Haudenosaunee. If you are new or newish here, I invite you to connect with us. Help us help you connect in our community out the welcome desk or online. I'm gonna stop moving so much so my mic gets a little quieter. All right. Sometimes, no, that doesn't help. And I like to talk with my hands. But sometimes church is for finding stillness, for finding a place where your soul can settle. And if you are here because you are going through a hard time or you're worried about someone else, I invite you to connect with one of our chat chaplains, with our pastoral care team. After worship, and for those of you who have been around this month, you know that now we're starting to talk about church not as the worship hour from 10 to 11, but what happens from basically 10 to 11:45 for both our kids and our adults. We have both a time to gather collectively and then a time to split up into smaller groups and get to know each other better. So after service, join me and members of our social justice teams to UU the vote. We've got got a big midterm election coming up, and restrictions on voting and discouragement to exercise our right to vote have swept through this country in really insidious ways over the last decade. And so we're gathering together, and our hope is to become a congregation that makes good trouble. So we've made it really easy for folks online and in person today. Join us after worship to write some letters. One of the people facilitating our groups, one of the leaders of our social justice support team, is Alex Hale, and he'll light our chalice here in the sanctuary. If you're online, I invite you to light a candle or a chalice wherever you are. And if you are here in this service, please join me in our unison words as we begin our worship together. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
Many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
Okay, if you have been in or taught an intro psychology class in the last 20 or 25 years, you've probably seen this video or one like it. But the basic instruction was to count how many times the players in white passed the basketball. And so I invite you to turn to your neighbor and share your guess. How many times? And then share anything else that you might have noticed, anything you think they might want to know. And if you're online in the chat. All right, there are so many things to share. I know not even a little gentle tinkle from Joe can stop the chatter, and I love that. I love how much there is to talk about. So I'd love to hear, how many times was the basketball passed by the players in white? 16? Did you all get that? All right, I hear 13, I hear 16, 15, 10, 8. Anything else you noticed? There was a gorilla. Did anyone not see the gorilla? A fair amount of you. There was a gorilla in the basketball game, or, you know. Anything else? Pardon? They were all women. At least they all presented as women. It's true. Yeah. All right, Emily, play part 2 of the video.
The correct answer is 16 passes. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business illusion. Learn more about this illusion and the original gorilla experiment at theinvisiblegorilla.com.
For a brief embodied practice, I will invite you all to rise in body or in spirit if you're here in the sanctuary, making eye contact with another player and pass or receive the basketball. All right, my loves, you can now take your seats. I think you're up, Anne.
Good morning. So the reading this morning is by Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it.
I am not sure we need more words after Mary Oliver. She says so much in just a few. But still, please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Settle into your place and find a stillness with me. Let us share a moment of silence together. Spirit of life, source of endings and beginnings, God of many names, no name at all, and one abundant love. As we creep toward coming out day, even those who are straight among us are reminded that the need to become, to be, and to proclaim ourselves is offered anew each and every day. May this be an invitation. May this be a blessing. May we find support where it is needed and give love wherever we can. May we return again and again to the rituals, to the words, to the prayers and the movements that ground us in who we are and how we wish to be. We follow this week the Jewish High Holy Days. Yom Kippur has come and gone. And still, forgiveness, atonement, and a chance to begin again are offered to us. Here in community, we gather each week in ritual to bring what is on our hearts and to set it down in front of one another, to say online whatever it is that we'd like to share, or to light a candle in recognition that here in community, the grief, the growth, and the gratitude that we carry is not ours alone. So I invite you now into this ritual. Here, gathered in community, may we witness to one another's hearts. May we share in a ritual of community care. Here in the sanctuary, you're invited to rise and light a candle, or to raise your hand if you would like a candle to be brought to you. And online, I invite you to share in the chat one piece of the complexity of your life. Whatever is alive within you, come, lay it down at the altar of our community. May all that we hold in our hearts be held here in community and by the love that will not let us go. This love will not let us go. We are invited again and again to return to it, to begin with a fresh spirit. But this is no spiritual lark. It takes time and patience, renewal and forgiveness. And so we gather for a litany of atonement. And I invite you, if you wish, to join in the sung refrain for all that we seek forgiveness for all that we seek renewal in. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We give ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We
for each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We give ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. Amen, and blessed be.
Everything our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. Each week, we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester. And half of our Sunday offering goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. Today, we share our plate with the Unitarian Universalist Disaster Relief Fund. This partner organization is supplying emergency aid and recovering efforts in communities affected by Hurricane Ian to both UU congregations and to community members not served or often left in the gap by other relief efforts. May our lives and liberation be bound up with theirs. I'm thinking of our past minister, Reverend Margoley, who's in Orlando. I'm thinking of my friends in St. Augustine and the areas on the West Coast where my husband and his.
I'm grateful that laundry still smells good. I'm grateful that I had food today and I remembered to eat it. I'm grateful for a roof over my head. There were more days than he would have liked to admit that the basic needs of food and shelter made the list, but he remembered to be grateful for them, at the very least on those days. And they didn't heal all the pain, but they helped him remember too that amidst all that struggle, there too were good things. There too was joy. His therapist was encouraging him in secular words to not miss the blessing, to not let all that is good pass us by uncounted. We are incredibly resilient creatures. Most animals are, and humans are no different. We adjust to the times, both the good and the bad. And when it comes to the good, it is easier to adjust, to forget that we haven't always had or might not always have these things. Our adaptation and flexibility are good things, except when they make us forgetful of all that we are blessed with. And so my friend, amidst all his grief and pain, wasn't missing these blessings, at least not 3 of them. The poet, Mary Oliver, she doesn't just write those 3 important instructions for life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. She also tells about it. She writes a lot, and she's incredibly prolific, and we love her so dearly. And St. Mary among us also reminds us to be married to amazement. Like other marriages, all other marriages, this marriage, this one to amazement between me and that which is astonishing and beautiful and joyful, it's not an endless parade of enthusiasm. There are days where I wake up and I say to amazement, "You again? You're still up to this same old stuff?" There are days where I wake up and say, "But haven't you heard about climate apocalypse? And haven't you heard about mourning? And haven't you heard about all that I am burdened with?" Yes, and this marriage to amazement, it requires us to develop a practice of gratitude, and to do so, the Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Galen Gingrich down in New York City, encourages us to keep a catalog of astonishment, a way of returning to the things that we've noticed, what we've paid attention to that astonished us, so that we might later tell about it, even if we're telling it only to ourselves. There's a story that some of you may know about visitors to a village. And these are one of those stories and one of those villages where there's an end, a perimeter to town, and somebody sits just outside of it. Someone old and wise who has a lifetime of experience to share. And this person has been all around, but was born and raised in this particular village and chose to live in this particular village. And having found that she had, nothing much to do these days, she sat outside to greet newcomers. I recommend this practice also at church. But this wise elder, she sits outside and she waits by the path for people to come. One day someone comes along and says, "Well, tell me about this village. What is it like?" And our elder says, "Tell me about the village that you came from. What was it like? Or the town or the city or the space colony or wherever it is that you happen to be. Tell me about it." And the visitor says, "Oh, it was awful. It was terrible. The people were mean. Everyone was cold. There was nothing to do there, and it was too busy." And our elder says, "Well, you'll likely find this village to be the same." Our elder sits and waits, and another visitor comes along, and this visitor asks the same question. "Where is it that I've come upon? Tell me about these people. Tell me about this place. What is it like here?" Which, if you're paying attention, you'll notice is, in the good Unitarian fashion, actually 2 comments and then a question. But all the same, the elder, in her generous spirit, she responds with the same. Well, tell me about where it is that you've come from. And this visitor says, well, it was wonderful there. I am seeking a new place, but the people were warm. I liked it. There was enough to do. It was a place you could make an impact and yet be known. You could know others. I'm looking for something like that. And our elder says to this visitor, you'll likely find this village to be the same. Life will give you enough evidence to convict it with whatever you charge it with. This is not to say that reality is entirely of our own making. We know that it is not. Whether or not you noticed the gorilla or the player leaving or the curtain changing, all of those things happened. We can't fully form life to our own desires. But the truth is, life is so abundant, so full, so rich, and so lacking that whatever it is that we bring to life, life will give us enough to convict it as we charge it. The gorilla video that helps reveal to most of us that we don't pay as good attention as we think we do, or we pay wildly good attention to the thing that we were charged with to the expense of everything else. Well, it's a good illustration for helping us understand that there's so much more to life than what any of us can hold alone. It takes learning and unveiling and a team to take it all in. And this brings us good lessons around what it means to live in the world with our particular identities. It's a good lesson for us in understanding that whatever our experience is in this world, someone else's probably holds a piece of the truth that we don't yet hold. And this is a good sermon illustration for how white supremacy or patriarchy or other oppressions might be invisible to those who do not share identities that help them develop a lens to see and know those truths. But I share this video with you today also to say, what if everything good in your life was a person in a gorilla suit? Do not miss the blessing, my friends. Joy is the reward for gratitude, the Reverend Galen Gingrich tells us. To notice the blessings, to count them, not each and every one, because quite frankly, no matter how bad your life is or how hard your contemporary struggles are, there are too many to name, and it would take all day and all night. But to not miss that which is right in front of us, to ground ourselves and root ourselves in the practice of gratitude, of giving thanks for that which we already have, to help move us towards knowing what is enough. We begin our sermon series, our religious education series, our small group series on enough this harvest season today. And the joy that is our reward for gratitude is knowing what is enough. For cultivating a deep sense of belonging in our own lives, not the life that could be out there if only we had this really nice jacket, or if only we had these friends, or if only our church were like this and not like that. Joy is a reward for gratitude in seeing that what we already have and cultivating more of it. This requires of us a sense of mutuality, an understanding that we are both giving and receiving all of the time. When we are better able to understand how we receive, how we are interdependent already. Now, I know many of us are cultivating our practice of being able to receive graciously, to ask for help when we need it. And many of us will also name on job interviews that our biggest problems are that we don't always ask for help early enough, or maybe we take on too much, or we're too enthusiastic. And those are good answers in job interviews. And they are practices that we should also be cultivating. But the truth is, whether or not we acknowledge it, we are already deeply interdependent. We are already deeply dependent on the hands that plant and pick and prepare our food, on the people who fought justice battles before our time, on all those who gather to interweave and conspire to make this great life. I find during this time of year, for obvious reasons, as my Jewish colleagues have what feels like an incredible marathon and sprint at the same time as they move from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur into Sukkot, and the holidays pile up on one another, I find myself thinking of the Jewish colleagues that I've worked most closely with. And for obvious reasons, most often these are reform, or perhaps not obvious, for political and social justice alignment reasons, these are most often reform and reconstructionist colleagues who carry these Jewish traditions forward. But I've worked too with Jewish colleagues of more conservative traditions, and I had a Hasidic colleague working in a hospital who explained to me over lunch as she blessed her food that the blessings and prayers that she performs as she rises each morning and goes to bed each night and before she eats, well, they're good practice. They center her, but also in her tradition, they are a part of restoring the world. Given my alliances with Reform and Reconstructionist Jewish colleagues, I understood this concept of restoring the world, of Tikkun Olam, as essentially a social justice call, of repairing the world, bringing together the bits of light that already exist but are there for us to gather. And she said, yes, of course, those two are all mitzvahs, all good things to do. But the blessings are embedded in each and every one of our actions. The mundane rising in the morning is a gift of each and every day. The sitting down to a meal requires the acknowledgement that this is not a given, and it too is a blessing. And besides, someone else might be counting on it. There's liberation embedded in each of these actions. And she shared with me a mystical understanding of what it meant for her to live her daily actions in life. That of course she could eat the food. God wouldn't punish her for having not said a blessing over her food. But what if those who had planted or picked or prepared the food needed a blessing that day? Don't miss it, she reminded me. So as we gather today to ground ourselves between weeks of fretting and fury, of busyness and boredom, of longing for something else, may we be reminded to not miss the blessing. May we find ways to count that which we are grateful. And may this gratitude move us to a sense of deep belonging in the life that we currently have. May this life be yours. May our gathering and our church be ours together. As I look out onto each of your faces, I will not miss the blessing. Come, let us sing our closing hymn together, loud and upbeat.
Together in joyful thanksgiving, with
You may now be seated. I'm not going to keep you here forever, but just for a little while longer. It's with gratitude to Dick and Joyce Gilbert, who wrote this hymn, that we sing together. After our service, I have 2 invitations for you, which is why I've asked you to sit. The first is next week, our new music director, Pablo Wiley Bustos, joins us. And I am very excited about that. As part of our welcome, I've invited all of you, and I invite you again to join in our Battle of the Hymns. We've got a tournament going on. And if you haven't already voted, we've got matchups. It's this hymn or that hymn. And we are, over the next week, narrowing this down to one final winner. And we will sing just that hymn for the rest of time. No, but it's good for Pablo to know, what is it that we like here? It is true, none of the 32 are things that I don't like, but there's a wild card category. And so I invite you, if you haven't already voted, be sure to snap this QR code on your phone or take down the link and vote today, because round 1 closes at the end of today, and we will narrow down to the Sweet 16 of our favorite hymns tomorrow. After we close our worship, our service will begin. As Unitarian Universalists, our 4th principle calls us to affirm the democratic process. And we mean that here in our congregations as we listen deeply to ourselves and to each other, but also in wider society. As Unitarian Universalists, we gather to you the vote, to organize to make an impact, and Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country are trying to stir up good trouble, making sure that people with the right to vote are able to access it, are encouraged and permitted to access their democratic rights in this country. And so I invite you after the service to stick around. If you're online, there's a breakout room for folks who want to use the vote. I'll be with you. There's another room if you just want to chat and get to know each other. Here in person, I understand some of you may not stick around, and that's okay. But for those of you who are going to stick around, I just want to have our facilitators, if you could rise and start to make your way up toward the front here. Alex and Tom in the corner, Judy and Paul. Sorry, I was looking at Paul and Ellie at the same time, and my mind was going with Polly, and I was just breaking inside. But Judy and Paul, if you could stand on that side. I'm not trying to break, this isn't a battle, this one, but thank you. The reason I've done this is these folks will be in rooms where masks are required. These folks will be in rooms where masks are optional, and you're welcome to get coffee beforehand out those doors and in the kitchen if you'd like. If you'd like to join them, line up with one of them and they will escort you to a room after we close here. But let us close our time together. Each and every Sunday, it is a joy to be with you. It is too much to name every gratitude that I have, too much to name every reason I am thrilled to be alive and in your company. This is I love you so. I start my list with Ellie and Alex and Tom. Thank you. Our worship has now ended. May our service begin. Let us extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, go in love, go in gratitude. I love you. Amen.